Hey, Rail fans. As you recall, on our last episode, we downloaded some existing files off of Thingiverse of Cub Rumble's Town Building 10, 11, 12. We put it into our CAD program, and we went ahead and rearranged and added to it to give us extra bay doors, change the window configuration, and completely reconfigure the roof. So now that we've got all that work done, it's time to go ahead and get it printed and get it painted. So let's get this work done. So here's your foundation. Now on the foundation, the thing I like about printing these is it helps me to square up the building real well when I'm putting the walls together, because I can use the foundation for that because it's got the raised parts it sets into. Now, if you weren't doing the foundation, you could still use styrene, or you could use some of the Luan panel. Say you wanted to group a bunch of your buildings together, you could put them all together on that Luan panel, so that way you can build a whole bunch of buildings at one time, and you can run all of the wiring all in one spot, which is something we might go ahead and do. And what's really interesting is watching this, how the brick pattern starts showing up, the way it bounces all the way here, and there, and the other place. So the 3D printing part to me is a lot of fun. I get a lot of satisfaction out of cutting and slicing and creating something, you know. And all of the buildings in our layout are all 3D printed. We haven't bought any building kits at all.
Yeah, I think the only kit we've done at all on the layout would be the bridge.
Just the bridge. So this is the end wall that we added the bay door, and we deleted one of the windows. And I think it's coming out pretty good. I think this is going to work well for us. Once again, that brick pattern, it's fun to watch. This other part you'll see is in between the layers, is about halfway up, is what they call an infill right there. And that is just to help you save on your filament. So you don't always have to have completely solid pieces. So it gives a little pattern, so when you lay the next layer, it's something for the filament to attach to, otherwise it just sags. So I think this comes out pretty good. And you got the area up above the brick that's a little flat right there, but we're going to be putting signs on that. So we can name these buildings, building 1, building 2, A or B, or
Helping the truckers find their way to it.
yeah, it could be one of them is the storage warehouse, the other one's the machine shop, you know, maintenance room.
I like how you can see the layer lines going on as we're printing.
This is a big change in design, and this is going to work good for us. And we'll get some other HVAC stuff together to put up there.
So here we're scrubbing in the paint. The first layer, you want it really thin but really thorough. You want it to get all the way down to the end of the cracks and crevices and the texture on the piece, but you don't want to flood in between the lines, or a wash later to add the mortar won't work. So here we're using barn red, which dries to a nice muted red.
Yeah, I think this is a great color for the bricks. I really like this color. Remember the first time you used it, I was like, what?
Yeah.
It just didn't look right to me, but it kind of grows on you after a bit.
It does, and right out of the bottle, it does look kind of pink.
Yeah, and you really scrub this in too. I mean, these are pretty rough surfaces.
They are. I've got a certain brush I use for it because I don't want to rough up our other brushes, and it does a lot of damage to the brush. That brush is all frayed out.
Yeah, but I'll repurpose it later for using for glues or you know, other things. It'll come in handy. Now this does take 2 coats to cover. The first coat, once it dries, the gray kind of bleeds through a little bit. So Roxy always comes back, does a second scrub out, and they always come out looking great.
It gives it a nice depth to the bricks.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, these Brumble designs, he does a particularly good job with the brick, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the other designers I've seen, their brick doesn't look quite right.
Yeah, or it doesn't quite print the way you want it to.
Yeah, yeah. But his designs are always spot on, so these are the ones that I'm really targeting to go in and make changes to create something new out of what he's already created.
And if you're interested in seeing any of our painting and printing live, not sped up, we do that on Sundays at our live at 4 o'clock. So please join us.
So now we're adding the trim, and Roxy's trying to keep these muted tones because these are actually, these are more industrial buildings. They're going to be support buildings for a factory.
Yeah.
So she's keeping everything muted, and the colors are for this.
So this one is Truffle, and it's a matte paint from Walmart that we got, a matte acrylic. And it does a nice faded wood kind of tone.
Yeah, this is one of those chalk paints, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I really like the way those chalk paints look, and they cover well.
Yeah, they have a very nice finish.
I just wish they had more colors available to us in the chalk colors. Roxy's very meticulous about going back over and getting every little spot.
If I miss something, I get to stare at it on the layout, and it always bothers me. So we'll do the trims between the buildings and also all the trims around the doors and windows.
Yeah, I was thinking after we did the creation, I'd already printed these. I was thinking that maybe a large bay door would have been good on the side on one of these buildings.
Mm-hmm.
But I think these will look good regardless. I think they're going to be just perfect for what we want. And Roxy's very meticulous. She's got a very steady hand with this.
And anything I do mess up, I kind of go in with the previous color and just color it over.
So this, to me, is a really important part. When you buy bricks, it's rare that you'll get pallets of bricks that they're exactly the same.
Usually you have to pay extra to get them all exactly the same.
Yeah, so they have some variation of color. So Roxy, she takes the base colors and she adds other colors to it to create different versions of that base.
Mm-hmm.
And then at random spots goes in and puts that color in on individual bricks.
I feel like it adds to the texture and keeps the buildings from looking too flat and plain.
Yeah. And to me, it looks very realistic. Most brick buildings, you go around, you'll see variations of the brick.
That's what I see in town around me.
Yeah.
So this color is the Tuscan red, and I thought having some brighter bricks in there might add to it. And then here with the lighter color, I took our barn red and added some khaki to it. That creates a lighter brick, and it's a little bright when I first paint it on, but it dries down to be a nice variation. And then the darker bricks, we've got our barn red again, but to it I've added some burnt umber to get kind of a burnt brick look.
Yeah, I think those look great. We have a couple of tan buildings that you did this with that I thought looked fantastic.
I like how the tan buildings come out that way.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
You can really see the differences on those. And with this, it is more muted, it'll blend together more, but that's the intent of the particular building. Some of the newer buildings, I do more contrast, and it just adds to the brightness of the building.
And there's a lot more contrasted bricks in this area where we bricked in the window.
Yeah.
Because while the building may have been built 20 years ago, they may have bought a pallet of used bricks from some other place and used them for breaking in that window. So it's going to be a little different.
Yeah.
You could probably even get away with getting a completely different color brick, like a tan brick or something. That's what was available when they bricked in the window.
Especially on these old factory buildings where they're not worried about aesthetics so much.
Yeah.
It's more about function. So we'll do this to all our brick surfaces, and that'll make them kind of pop and have more texture to them.
Onto the windows and doors.
Yeah. And here we're using English Ivy in the apple barrel paints, and I added some Timeless Gray to it to kind of dull it down. It's a very strong color.
Yeah, but it's a good color, and I think that combination that you use works well for this. I think it's a good color for this industrial setting.
We found these acrylic paint pens at Walmart, and they've been great for doing anything metallic. So we've got it in silver and gold and bronze. And I find that when I use a paintbrush on the tip and then paint with it, I get a better coating on the parts. And then I mix some burnt umber and harvest orange to make a rusty color to dry brush on the outside.
And of course, all these buildings, when we go to get them placed, we'll be doing more weathering and staining on them. So things like the HVAC and all that will get more rusty looking.
Yeah, it's just, you can't do too much weathering before you know the environment that it's in.
This is the awesome part, this wash. So this really shows some leaching and aging, and gets the grout lines to show up. So now that we're done, we can start assembling the building.